Tonight on Coast to Coast, we are going to take you on a journey with an angel communicator. Chantel Lysette is with us next. Angelic Pathways on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, welcome back. Let me tell you about Chantel Lysette, angel intuitive that has, she's read for hundreds and hundreds of clients and is the creator and host of the Angel Gallery, which is a lecture reading series. She's currently gearing up for the Minneapolis Angel Symposium in June, where she'll be giving a couple-hour lecture on angels and cosmology as well as readings. She's also excited to appear at the Los Angeles K-Con in the summer, where she'll be offering readings for charity as well. Her book is Angelic Pathways, and here's Chantel Lysette on Coast to Coast. Hello there. Should I call you the Angel Lady?
Everyone else does. Hi, George. How are you this evening?
I'm doing wonderful, wonderful. Have you always been surrounded by angels? Is that how this happened for you?
Now, in hindsight, I can say yes, but coming up in my childhood, I just wasn't aware of it. I was aware of the ghosts I was surrounded by, but I wasn't aware of the angels until I became much older.
But they were always there. Did you ever hear special voices in your head? It might have been angels, but you just didn't know?
Oh, absolutely. And it was I would tell my mother when I was a young child that I heard a voice tell me to go right, not left. And maybe that stopped me from getting hit by somebody on the playground or hit by a ball on the playground or somebody coming off the monkey bars or the slides. And my mother just said, well, that just happens to the ladies of our family and just get used to it. So I just got used to it. And my mother called it old-fashioned intuition. But as I grew older and grew more curious, I began to study it, and that's when I discovered that there's a lot more out there than that I was originally aware of. Let me say that.
And it's not all good for us, is it?
No, that's where things get a little murky with me, because I do not work in the realms of good or bad or good and evil, and neither do the angels. Everything is by divine purpose. Everything is done according to God's will. So it's not a matter of whether it's good or bad, because those are subjective. So good and bad, it just describes how a situation makes you feel. So one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. So that's why I try to stay away from the concepts of good and bad and just say things just are, life just is, and everything has a divine purpose. There's no coincidence. There's no accident.
When you, Chantel, begin to communicate with the angels, how do you go about that?
Well, actually, I got dragged into this, George. I did not ask for them to come to me. They just popped up. And originally, I started with a spirit guide in 1994. And I gave him a lot of trouble. I write about him. In fact, I write about his story in my book, Angelic Pathways. And I was with him for many, many years. I finally cut him a break in 1996. And I didn't realize that he was pretty much paving the way for me to work with God's messengers. And after my spirit guide, Jake, I was introduced to Archangel Cassiel, and then after that, I started actively working with archangels around 2001, right after my mother passed away, and that was Archangel Gabriel, the angel of Annunciation.
Go right to the top, don't you?
Well, I try to get the angels to tell me about the hierarchy, and the most I could get out of them is Michael is the master general, and that's about as much hierarchy as I can get out of them. So, but for everybody else, it's a pretty even field.
Are you in a trance or a special state of mind when you communicate with them?
That's a really awesome question. There are two types of trances that I do. when I'm reading for my clients, there's light trance where I am reading. Well, I really don't like to say the word reading. It's more of a consultation because I play an operator of sorts, a phone operator, where I just relate to the client whatever their angel has to say to them. And whether the angel is standing over their shoulder or my shoulder and whispering in my ear and telling me what to say. That's light trance. And then there's deep trance, where the angel actually speaks through me, takes over. I'm awake. It's very surreal. It's almost a dreamlike state where I'm aware of what's going on, but I have no control of what I do and no control over what's being said. So the angel is speaking directly to my client. I don't do that often because that does take a toll on my health. So, deep trance, not so much, but light trance, all the time.
In deep trance, does your voice change?
Yes, those who have had the pleasure of seeing me in deep trance, not only have seen my voice change, but when I first started practicing, I practiced with a very dear friend because I was actually afraid of it at first when the angels came to me and said, well, we're going to take this up a notch. And I was very fearful, but I knew to go ahead with it. I knew to trust them. And I decided to try it with a friend. And we were out in the backyard, and it was Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, and Archangel Gabriel. And the three of them wanted to speak to my friend, and they were taking turns. And Michael came in first because Michael's the rock star. He always leads in. He is the most beautiful angel in heaven. All the ladies are chasing him around. But when he comes into our lives, he comes to tell us about external things that are about to change. So he came through first. And then Raphael came. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware that Archangel Raphael is the angel of healing. Mm-hmm. And so Raphael's very gentle. But then I heard another voice that you're going to have company. I said, oh, uh-oh. And I thought that maybe it would have been a neighbor coming over in the middle of this reading, and I panicked. I didn't know what to do. But it turned out it was the groundskeeper for our particular lot with their huge lawnmowers. And so Raphael couldn't talk over them. And then all of a sudden, I felt the shift. Michael pushed Raphael out of the way and told my friend, I'll be right back. Now, I had a stroke in 2004. I use a rollator. My gait is very wobbly, and so I need the assistance. But Michael got up and walked clear across the field without a rollator, talked to the guy, and it was a pretty scruffy guy. He does his maintenance, and he actually bowed. And I'm watching this in third person almost, like I'm watching a movie. Yeah. And the gentleman was bowing to everything Michael said. Michael said, hey, I got a friend over here. I'm talking. Do you mind? We'll be out of here in 10 minutes. Why don't you just go take a break? And he shook, and Michael shook his hand like a man, firm grip, hand on his shoulder, and the guy said, look, I'll take me and my crew. We could go over to the other side. And the guy was actually stuttering. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then Michael walked back, sat down, and let Raphael finish whatever the rest of his message. After that was done, I came back to, and I looked at my friend, and all the color had drained from her face. And she had known me since the stroke. And she said, if I weren't here, I would have never believed it. I wish I had a camera. She said, I have never seen you walk without your rollator and walk like that. She said, you walked across that field like you walked out of a powerhouse gym, and you just got finished weightlifting 500 pounds.
Now, what do you do now? Do you still use it, or do you need it at all?
The rollator?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely. I need it. I don't do well For long distances, fatigue is a really large problem, and the stroke has affected my right side, and it created a whole slew of other problems for my left side. And so sometimes I go into the doctor and just say, pick a side to work on today. Which side are we going to duct tape and super glue this afternoon, basically? So, yes, I do have my rollator. He's very much a part of me. But when the angels come through like that, and I've had that happen in angel galleries, the angels will get up and walk around, and I can feel the strength in my body. But once they leave, it's back to little old me.
If you can take religion out of stories of angels and just think of angels as another part of this universe or another dimension, it all starts to make sense, doesn't it?
It makes perfect sense. In fact, it makes a lot more sense. And that has been the beauty of this journey that I've had with the archangels. And in connecting with them and seeing the world that they've shown me, and seeing heaven with my own eyes, and hearing the stories, and after reading the Bible cover to cover and studying the Bible and hearing the angels off to the side saying, that's not exactly how that story went down. It actually becomes a little comical because they're with me 24/7. I live and breathe angels. They're my family. And so when we look at them outside of the Bible, they become more tangible for all of us. They become more real. It's not just about a being in a white robe speaking Old English and giving decrees. The angels become more like us. They become more human, so they can connect better with us, so we're more receptive to their messages, and so that we're not fearful of connecting with them. If you look at the history of Michael, or Saint Michael, Archangel Michael, he is the angel. He's the patron of police. He's the patron of military. He's the patron of firemen, those who would defend others. But that's what we've been hearing throughout the ages, patron of warriors, the one that kicked Lucifer out of heaven, supposedly.
Right.
But Michael likes the Super Bowl. It's his favorite game. He also loves hot wings and pizza and tailgating food. He's the patron of surfers. He loves the beach. He loves the waves, anything that has to do with the sun and sun tanning and just being out there and living free. He's the patron of living free and dance and movement and change. And he's a bright, sunny, very laid-back angel to be the master general of the angelic armies. And it even becomes a little comical watching the angels interact with each other because they all have personalities. Michael is laid back. Uriel is a lot more militant. And I've actually heard Uriel fold his arms and look at Michael's antics and say, wow, this is who we have leading us.
do they fight?
Yeah, they do. But they do it in a way that they do it in a comical way. And they banter back and forth. And I haven't had a chance to tell this story to my fans and my readers, and I've been promising it since November. But I got on the plane for the first time in 10 years back in November, and I was very nervous because I've always been terrified of flying. And Michael said, just trust us, get through this, and he said, the rest of the world is going to open up for you, but you've got to take this first step and get on this plane. And I said, okay. And I was flying from Detroit to Los Angeles, and I lost track of time because Michael was on the left wing, Uriel was on the right wing, Cassiel was up underneath the plane, and I had to listen to all three bicker as to whose animal totem was the strongest and the best at keeping planes in the air. So Uriel has horses, and he rides often by chariot.
They kept that plane up. You're in Macomb County, aren't you?
I am.
Well, you know,
I'm from your hometown.
Yeah, I'm from Detroit. Know that area really, really well. So, do angels have wings? I mean, what's the story about this?
No. That's an easy and clear answer. The angels do not have wings. Actually, that iconography goes very, very, very far back in history, even beyond ancient Egypt. Though ancient Egypt made it trendy when the gods having wings, and so that's how the wings became symbols of messengers and divinity. But angels today, because they know we as humans associate them with having wings, they will illustrate those wings because angels appear to us in ways we feel comfortable. So I am perfectly comfortable with the angels not illustrating wings. But there may be someone out there right now listening who just has to have an angel with wings, or that angel is not bona fide, and that's fine. If that's the case, Michael will show up with wings because that person is more comfortable. And it's just what Gabriel did for me. Gabriel originally came to me as Gabrielle in female form, but I wasn't ready for that because I just lost my mom. So she went away and came back later that night as Gabriel in male form.
How do you summon them, Chantel? How do they come to you?
Well, I'm going to put this out to your listeners, and I'm only going to say this once because this is very complex. So I want everyone to listen and to take note. When summoning an angel, this is what you do. Hey, Michael, I need your help, period.
That's it?
People think that's it. That's where we have been messing up for a very long time. It is incredibly simple. All you have to do is, with an earnest heart, ask the angels to come into your life. And if you are serious about it, they will come. And they will come bearing signs and bearing blessings and saying, are you ready to change? Because when they come into your life, they're coming in not just because you want them, but because they're going to be making changes that are necessary for your spiritual growth. So you have to be willing to change for them as well.
Well, that's an important thing, though. What you just said is you have to believe in this. If somebody is just doing it and doesn't believe it, is it going to happen?
Well, actually, it all depends. And this is where we come into life scripts. And a life script is the script that we write, we co-author with God or the source before we're even born. So all of this, everything that we're doing right now, right down to this conversation, was already prescripted. You and I had already agreed that tonight we were going to make this connection. So if it is time for an angel to come into a person's life, they're going to be there either way. But if someone wants to work actively with that angel, then they can ask, and then they'll see the angels weaving in and out of their lives.
We're going to come back and talk more about angels on Coast to Coast AM. It's about Angelic Pathways tonight on Coast to Coast AM. And we'll talk more about some of the miraculous things that they do. Next hour, we'll take your phone calls as well. You might want to share some of your stories on angels when we come right back on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast, Chantel Lysette with us. Chantel, you're going to hear next hour some incredible stories, angelic intervention, which are just miraculous. I mean, over the years when we've had these kinds of stories, we've got calls of people being saved, going over a cliff, drowning, and an angel reaches down and grabs them and stuff. Now, tell me, though, the difference between angels and archangels.
Well, the term the word angel means messenger, and archangel just means chief messenger. And the archangels actually fall into a rank that was set up by St. Thomas Aquinas in the Summa Theologica, and the archangels actually rank pretty low out of the 9. In order, you have seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominions, virtues, powers, principalities. And then at the lowly number 8, we have the archangels, and at number 9, we have angels. And this is the hierarchy related to the angels' proximity to God. So the archangels are angels whose sole mission is to interact with humankind. As you said, we'll be hearing stories about people seeing angels, being saved by angels, and as far as my work is concerned, archangels are the only angels I work with aside from ascended masters, and I only work with archangels I actually know, have worked with for a while. I do what's called reverse angelneering, where the angel will come to me first, and I'll work with him or her for a year before I research them, because when I turn around and research, and that research backs up what they've done over the year, then that becomes my sign and my validation for me. I always have to have personal validation. So the archangels interact with human beings on a personal scale, whereas angels, they can weave in and out of our lives, but they're more like helpers. They tend to stay in heaven and do tasks delegated in heaven more than interacting with just us humans.
Now, you say that, they have tempers, they I guess, act human-like in most cases? But they only do it to connect with us. They do it to make it easier for us to be more receptive to them. That's all. So they are very much divine creatures. They are very much perfect creatures. So if Uriel is having a bit of a temper tantrum with Michael, it's to make it accessible and to make it so we can look at them and see ourselves. But it's only to create more cohesiveness between them and us, with them as our cosmic brothers and sisters, our big cosmic brothers and sisters who are looking over us, the little cosmic brothers and sisters. Let's talk a little bit about their personalities. You said that they're all different.
Oh, yes.
Are there some that are favorites to you rather than others?
Oh, I don't want to get in trouble and say I have a favorite. But actually, I do. And it would have to be Archangel Cassiel, because he was the first angel I met back in 1996. And my spirit guide, Jake, introduced me to him.
Now, who is Jake as a spirit guide? Was he a living person?
Yes.
This Jake is his soul now?
Yes. Jake was a living person who unfortunately passed away in his youth. He was 28 years old, and it was a tragic accident. And he came to me, and I put him through the ringer. As I said, I talk about it in my latest book, Angelic Pathways. I give him a very hard time. But after a while, I came to love him as a brother, because everything he was telling me was coming to pass. And when that happens, or I should say, before that happens, you wonder if you're crazy. You wonder if maybe you should check yourself in. And that's where I tell people the difference is if the voice that's talking to you, first of all, the voices coming from the divine will never tell you to do any harm to anyone or to yourself. That's the first rule. The second rule is always look for signs and always look for validation. And time after time, Jake proved himself to me by foretelling events that came to pass. So by the time he introduced me to Archangel Cassiel, I was pretty much ready to work with the archangels, especially because Cass came to me in a way that I was receptive. Remember how I said that the angels will change their appearances based on what you feel you're most comfortable with? And at the time, I was in college, and I was in I had a certain love for a certain type of music, and Cassiel was the perfect angel for that because he dressed the part, he looked the part, and he wiggled his way into my heart because he is the angel of tears and the angel of sorrow. And he brought me messages from my father to me after my father passed away because I had an immense amount of guilt. My father had dementia. We didn't know a lot about dementia back then. Back then, we just called it senile, if you remember. We're talking the mid-'90s. And so we didn't know much about Alzheimer's. And I felt guilty because I felt that I didn't do enough to make him comfortable in his last days. And so Cassiel came to me to comfort me and helped me to let that guilt go. And so he's my buddy, and I love him very much. But I will have to say, angels switch out. It depends on where you are on your spiritual path. I love Cassiel, but I don't see him that much right now because he's not the angel that's helping me out on my current spiritual path. Right now, I'm working with Michael and Uriel, and that's a hoot. It's like working with the odd couple. So I would have to say I love them both. I love them dearly as brothers. Michael is jovial and Mr. Sunshine, and Uriel is let's get it done. We don't have time for games, and let's make a move on here. So Uriel's all about business, and Michael is all about play.
Well, now where's the devil in all this, Chantel? He was an angel.
I knew you were going to ask me that question.
I have to ask you about the devil.
I knew it was coming, and I'm definitely ready for it.
They told you.
Talk about it. I talk about him. Well, let's make some distinctions first between Lucifer, the devil, or Satan, and demons. Let's make distinctions between those three. Let's lay the groundwork for those. Firstly, people have asked me, do I believe that Satan and demons exist? The answer is an unequivocal yes, but not in the way one might expect. I don't believe in them in the biblical sense. The demons, I believe, are the demons that we as humans come bundled with, the things we have to fight through every day, and everybody's got a demon that they have to fight and struggle with. And as soon as we think we've conquered one demon, another demon rears its head. So we go throughout our lives fighting these demons and moving forward along our spiritual journey and elevating our souls for the next spiritual journey, for the next lifetime, because I believe in reincarnation. Now, as far as Satan is concerned, I believe that Satan is our ego, because our ego will trip us up every time. Our ego is the one that closes us off from not entertaining others' opinions or thinking that we may be better than someone or just being the root of jealousy and envy. So when I think of Satan, I think we battle him every day too, and that's our ego. But you want to know about Lucifer and where he plays into all of this. And the shocker is this, and I put this in my book, Angelic Pathways, and this is actually a part of my Christmas story. This is a part of my nativity story or lecture that I do every year. Lucifer did not fall. He is not an agent of evil. He is a light bearer. Now, was there a fight, a disagreement, as it were, between him and the other angels? Yes. But when we look at things biblically, it was Lucifer was kicked out because of pride, because he wanted the throne. He wanted to be God. Since when did God need to be protected? If you look in the Old Testament, it speaks of the angels protecting the throne of God. What throne? God needs a throne? God flows through all of us. The creator of all that is, he needs to be protected by angels? Really? He actually felt threatened by this one angel he created named Lucifer. That's the story that we all know. And Archangel Michael threw Lucifer out of heaven, and a third of the angels fell. Well, no. What happened was that everything was beautiful with just the angels. And then we creatures called humans came along. And it was okay for a minute. The angels looked at us and said, okay, this is interesting, this is new, and we can work with it. But then we brought evil to the Garden of Eden. I'm sorry about that slip. We were the snakes in the tree.
Well, maybe it was the Garden of Evil.
Maybe it was. We were the ones that brought envy and jealousy because we were created without perfect knowledge. And when you have curiosity, that's a breeding ground for innovation, but that's also a breeding ground for want and desire and greed. And Lucifer looked at that and said, oh, no, not in my paradise. And Lucifer became angry, and he wanted us gone, deleted, sent back to sender. And there was a young angel there who said, these beings are not flawed. They're just different. Because nothing imperfect can come from perfection.
Chantel, how do you know that the angels are working to our behalf, our benefit?
I work with them every day. So, and I see them, and it's not just a matter of taking my word for it. With the clients I work with, I see how the angels work in their lives. I see the validations, and I get return calls of miracles that have happened. Right now, we're in the middle of a vortex of manifestation where miracles are happening at lightning speed, one after another. It's been happening to me, and it's been happening to a lot of my clients and a lot of my very close friends. So everything the angels do is in our best interest because that's divine law. The goal for us is to evolve and to move up and to have better understanding of our Creator. So we live this life, we learn our lessons, we go home, they ask us what we learned. Did you learn it? Yes. Okay, here's another set of lessons to learn. And we come back, and we do it over and over again until we've learned all the lessons we need to learn.
Is that their main role, to make sure we get to where we're supposed to be headed?
That's their main role, yes. That's exactly what they're supposed to do. That is their first and foremost delegated task, to make sure that God's plan or God's will is carried out. And that involves us fulfilling our divine purpose.
Well, I'm convinced these entities that most of us call angels are real. I think they have assisted so many of us in our lives. They've saved most of us. Tell us about the guardian angel. Who is the guardian angel in our lives?
Well, I try to get away, and I discuss this in all three of my books. I try to, and I also talk about this in my lectures. I try to get away from using the term guardian angel, and I try to get my clients away from using that terminology because we as humans put way too much of an emphasis on the word guardian. Because you have someone riding around with a medal of St. Michael in their car hanging from their rearview mirror, they get in an accident and they wonder what happened. Well, wasn't Michael supposed to protect me? That's my guardian angel. Well, if it is written in your script that you're supposed to be in an accident, Michael's not going to do anything but make sure that accident happens, because there are dominoes that need to be tipped, cause and effect. That accident that you may look at as a punishment or a bane to your existence because of the repercussions is a hidden blessing. It's always a blessing. Even the worst things that happen in your life, there's a blessing in there somewhere. So I try to get my clients to use the word mentoring angel, because everyone has two angels at any given time. We have our mentoring angel and our parenting angel. The parenting angel is the angel you're born with. That's the one who helped you write your script, and that's the one who will be standing at the foot of your bed when it's time for you to go home. Your mentoring angel, those are the angels that switch out throughout your lifetime based on where you are on your spiritual journey. Remember how earlier I said I used to work with Cass, but now currently I'm working with Michael and Uriel?
Yep.
I'll be working with Michael and Uriel for a while. They'll switch out, and I could be working for Raphael for a year. It all depends on where you are in your spiritual journey. So I prefer to say mentoring angel and parenting angel, and both of them will watch over you, but they're watching over you to make sure that you fulfill your divine purpose.
Do you think when you pass, and let's hope it's longer and farther out than closer, that you'll become an angel? Can you?
It takes a long, long time. There are only two humans that have ever become angels, and their names are, their angelic names are Metatron and Sandalphon, but the Bible, we would know them biblically as the prophets Enoch and Elijah.
Uh-huh.
So those are the only two so far out of countless. There's no number to count the human souls, because we got to remember, this isn't the only planet with humans. This isn't the only dimension, the only reality, and this isn't the only place where the archangels have to work. So all of that said, considering that there's still only two that have made it so far, it's going to take me a while. But I'm working on it.
You stand by. We're coming back with phone calls next on Coast to Coast AM. This is the hour. We'll take your phone calls, your stories, your questions with Chantel Lysette as we talk about her work, Angelic Pathways. We'll get right to you when we come back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back, Chantel Lysette with us. Chantel, this interaction between the archangels and humans, is it a regular occurrence? Does it happen a lot?
Oh, it happens all the time. It's not just when we ask, but it's on a regular basis, and it's business as usual for heaven. There's not a moment when the angels aren't working with us. So at all times, there's angels somewhere weaving in and out of someone's life.
How do we know? How do we know it's not trickery by some entity trying to take advantage of us?
Well, a house divided can not stand. And I delve deeply into this and my books because I was born on a very solid Christian background, and then teenage years came along, so I walked away from the church at that point. College came, I started exploring other religions and other beliefs, and then I wound up back in church as a born-again Christian. Then I left again. So when
make up your mind,
came,
Chantel.
I know. But at the end of the day, I put the angels through so many rigorous tests. And I put myself through that because they have to get through our filters. They have to get through our desires, our inner voices, the ego that tells us that we're not good enough or for something. So I've tested and tested as much as I humanly can to make sure that these angels are who they say they are. Not to mention, I work with my Father directly, and his name is Jesus Christ. He is the pillar and the cornerstone of my faith, and he is the one who sends them forth. He is the King of angels, and there's been plenty of times when I haven't listened to my angelic brothers, and they've teased me, if you don't do this, we're going to go tell your Father, at which point I go ahead and do it because I answer to Jesus at the end of the day. When I go home, I'm answerable to my Father. So if he is sending them and they are doing good, and I am seeing them save souls and save people and turn them to God, not away from God, how could they possibly be evil?
Well, I don't think they are, but you could be tricked sometimes, I guess, huh?
Well, I always thought that, but no. My trust is unshakable at this point, and that's how you open up the door to miracles,
all right,
when that trust becomes unshakable.
Okay, we got Drew, truck driving in Oregon. Welcome to the program, Drew. Go ahead.
Hi, Drew.
Hi, Chantel. Hi, George.
Hi.
Chantel, I got a little story for you, and George, I got a quick question afterwards.
Sure.
Chantel, in 2011, about 2.5 years ago, I got home from a run I had and went straight to bed. My body was just like constantly still running from adrenaline. But I quickly fell asleep, and I saw myself walking up this mountain path through this tunnel and standing on the edge of this mountain looking up and seeing bodies flying off the ledge and over to this other side that looked like a morning sunset, sunrise out into the horizon. And it took me a moment. I realized where I was, and I yelled across the other way and said, when do I get to come over? And they told me, I heard a voice say, not for another certain amount of time. But and then I asked, well, can I come over and check things out? And they said, yeah, sure. So momentarily, there I was standing with this person with a clipboard, and they were pulling out my records, and I was asking what this was all about and what needed to be done, and they were telling me what needs to be done. And I kept referring to this person, or an angel or whatever, as Mom Karen or something like that.
Well, I could tell, the person you were talking to could have been using that name, or you could have been speaking to an angel guide, much like my angel guide, Jake.
Now, these angel guides, how do they come to us, or how do we go to them?
Angel guides are those who lived a human life and went back home, and instead of coming back here to learn lessons chose to stay home and work with us from the other side of the veil. And I use the other side of the veil loosely. I really don't like to use that term because heaven is right here, right now. We never left. You're still in heaven. I'm still in heaven. Everyone still is. We're just dreaming that we're in this particular reality. So I say that there's no such thing as life or death. We're just dreaming, and then there's awake. And awake is when you go home. So as far as the spirit guides are concerned, they are our spiritual cheerleaders. They can be family, people, friends, people we knew that may not want to come back for a few lifetimes and just want to stay on that side and help us out from the control panel instead of popping into the illusion, as it were.
You've talked about a vortex of manifestation. What is that?
Yes. The vortex of manifestation goes back to where we ended the last segment, where I said that my trust is unshakable.
Right.
And the vortex of manifestation is something the angels told me about at the beginning of the year, where it takes trust in God. And this applies to everyone, even atheists. So, because it's about believing in God, trusting in God, and that's going beyond belief. And you're saying, well, how do atheists come into this? Well, because this can apply to anyone, atheists, trust in yourself. If you believe that you are the masters of your own faith, then trust that and run with it. For the rest of us that have deities that we believe in, then we have to go beyond trust or beyond belief, which can waver a little bit, 50-50, maybe it's there, maybe it's not, and go into trust where we give ourselves over mind, body, soul, and to the point of utter surrender. And it's basically based on a prayer that came to me where it's very simple. Lord, you set the path before me, and I will walk it no matter where it leads. So that's giving the wheel over to Jesus or over to Christ or whomever you believe in. And no, Jesus isn't my co-pilot. He's the pilot. And so when you do that, the heavens will open up, and at that point, whatever you ask for, you get it, but you just simply ask for it. We're very arrogant creatures. We feel that we have to tell God what to do in our prayers. God, I want this house. It has to be this big. It has to have this many rooms. God knows what we need.
Do you think people really pray for that kind of thing?
Yes. Oh, I have had clients come to me and tell me what type of mate they want, right down to eye and hair color, professions and things like that. Well, the thing is, we think we know what's good for us. We think we know what will make us happy.
Well,
that's not always necessarily true. The Almighty knows what will make us happy. A lot of people think that $250 million will make them happy, and we see a lot of those people become incredibly miserable.
Of course. They're the Illuminati. They want more power.
So coming out of that, I always say, ask for what you want. If you want a house, say, Lord, I need a house. And let him fill in the blanks. You want a spouse? Lord, I need a spouse. Let him fill in the blanks. That's trust. And I know it works because that's how I got my dreams came true in succession over the course of just 5 months. And he told me how they were going to happen, when they were going to happen, and you actually are a part of that wave. And my Archangel Michael said, I'm not going to have time to come up and breathe for the rest of the year. Every time I look up, there's something new. And you were actually a part of that.
Let's go to Keith in Rochester, New York. Keith, go ahead. Thanks for calling.
Yes, I have two fast questions. The first, suicide. I've known several people, including my mother, who took their lives. Would you acknowledge that suicide and euthanasia at times have to be allowed because that person has determined that they're in so much pain that even with counseling, their time has come, that death is as much a part of life as life itself? And secondly, what about people who are enslaved? There are a lot of young people, incredibly young people, who are being sex trafficked. Where is God and those good angels to help these nervously young people who are being preyed upon by adults and who simply cannot break free, and then the long-lasting implications of their suffering long-term through their lives from having been sex trafficked and no one ever reaches them? Where is God and those angels for them? Thank you.
Well, two very tough questions here for you, Chantel.
Very, very tough, but actually in my books, those questions are answered. And in fact, in the most recent book, Angelic Pathways, I talk about it. And I will answer that in the same way that I wrote it in my book. The Native Americans, those who were born as Native Americans before the country was run over, they knew before they got here what they were walking into. The angels told them, this is what your life is going to entail. This is going to be bloody. It is going to be harsh. Conditions will be horrid. But you have the spiritual stamina to withstand this lifetime. And when we're on the other side, we realize that this is only an illusion. An average of 85 years is only 15 minutes of sleep on the other side. It's a 15-minute dream. So we come into these dreams because we know it's an illusion and it's not real, and we're here to learn. So they knew, and they chose to come. And I always say we're here for two reasons. One, because we can be, and two, because the source or God or whoever you want to call it trusts and knows that we can handle it. So, to answer the gentleman's question, where is God? God is watching. God is fully aware of what's going on. It's a part of the script for this particular reality. Is it pretty? No, I don't like it either. But those who come into these lives know what they're coming into. And somewhere out there, there is a hero. There is someone who is going to stand up and will make a change and will eradicate this problem, and we will all learn from it spiritually. But if we keep sitting back and saying, where is God, and all of this, instead of taking up a cause and saying, well, I could be the one to help. Maybe that's my purpose in life, and I can do that. It's a cop-out.
Sometimes, Chantel, though, like when a little baby passes on or something like that, and you say, how could God allow that to happen? How do you answer that? I mean, what do these archangels tell you?
Well, first of all, those who come and leave at a very young age are very high, are very astute souls. Those are still souls who are very well learned. They have most of their lessons learned. So a lot of those who come in and leave very early, they're not here to learn a lesson. They're here to teach a lesson, and it's for the parents. So there's a lesson in there for the parents to understand, whether it's learning about grief or whether it's to bring up something that they don't want to face something from their past. So when we lose our little ones, and it hurts, understand that those are advanced souls that come in to teach us, not to learn. We're supposed to learn lessons from them.
Let's take a call here. Daniel in Knoxville, Tennessee. Daniel, go ahead.
Hey, Chantel, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
All righty. I was wanting to share some of the Acts of the Apostles with you, and then I wanted to get your response of what you thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. It's in Acts 16, and it's verses 16 through 18. And it happened that as we were going to the place of prayer, a certain servant girl with a spirit, a demon of divination, met us. She used to furnish her masters with much gain by preaching the art of prediction. This girl kept following Paul and us and crying out with the words, "These men are the slaves of the Most High God, who are publishing to you the way of salvation." This she kept doing for many days. Finally, Paul got tired of it and turned and said to the spirit, "I order you in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her." And it came out that very hour. And I was wondering, Chantel, do you think that this applies to you, or does it not? And if it does not, then why?
Because I have spent so many years worrying that could have been me, especially having been in the Pentecostal church and born again Christian. It was in the Pentecostal church that I first heard Jesus Christ's voice say, "You will teach and you will heal." And it scared me so bad, that's why I left the church, because I was afraid of that. And first of all, let me just set the record straight here. I am not a predicting psychic. I can't tell, someone whether they're going to win the lottery or whether they're going to get their dream job. That's not what I do.
Chantel.
My position is, as a angel intuitive, is to connect you with God. Period.
Well, when you do that connection, let's find out exactly how people can tune in that way. We're going to come back and take some final calls in a moment here on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back to Coast, Chantel Lysette with us as we talk about her work, Angelic Pathways. So earlier you were saying if you need to summon up an angel, you simply call their name and they snap to attention.
That's all there is to it. There's no ritual that you have to do, and that's the very core of my work, is to let people know that the angels have been and always will be here for us. They were created for us, to teach us, to push us along our spiritual paths. And all we have to do is to earnestly ask for their assistance, and they will heed that call. Just be ready, because once you call, you're going to see your life start to make changes. It's happened to me. It's happened for hundreds and hundreds of people that I've worked with. And I don't write about or discuss anything that I have not personally tried or tested myself. So that's it. All you have to do is call out, and they will come to you.
When you communicate with them for your clients, do the clients ask you questions to ask the angels, or how does that work?
I read cold. I read for the client. Usually my readings are about an hour. They've gone longer. But I read, and I just relate to the client what the angel has for them. So I always tell my clients the angels will tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. In all of my galleries, it's a lot of fun, because that's where I get a group of 6 to 10 people, and I just randomly read for whatever name that's written on a piece of paper, and I pull it out of a hat. So I have no idea who I'm reading for, and I can't read with my eyes open to save my life. So I am just, it's a little awkward, but I'm reading for total strangers, and it's wonderful because after I'm done, then they can ask me whatever questions they have, and it's usually regarding the reading itself. And it's a joy. I love doing it. I've had great responses with it, and I've been doing it for a long time now. And I always tell people, come back to me when you get your validations, because my client's validation is my validation. And when the angels stop putting the validations and giving signs that they're here, then that's when I'm done. My
East
work
of
is
the
done.
Rockies. Let's go to Jay in Ocala, Florida. Jay, you're on with us. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I enjoy
Sure.
being a new listener. Thank you for all the information that I get from you.
Very well.
And good evening, Chantel.
Good evening. How are you?
Oh, well, I'm okay. About a week before I had cancer surgery, I was shopping with my cousin. Now, this was back in 1995. And we were in the grocery store, and she noticed this very nice-looking man and said, hey, you should go over and talk to him. And, of course, I'm shy. I won't do that. And anyway, she got us to exchange numbers. The day before my surgery, I just wanted to have coffee with a man. And so I gave him a call, and he said, sure, I'll pick you up for breakfast. I'll take you for breakfast. And he took me to this very little town, and we were walking around. It was kind of an artsy village. And I got a little tired. I guess I was getting worried about the surgery. And I sat down on this little bench because he told me to. It was a house, and it had a candle shop, which was closed. When I sat down, a man came to the door, and I jumped up and apologized for sitting there. And he said to me, Jay, you don't have to worry about that. You're welcome to sit here anytime you need to for as long as you want to. And I thought, well, that's strange. The man that I was with said she would love to see the candle shop. Would you show it to her? And he said, sure, just give me a minute. And it was like maybe a minute and a half or so. He opened the door, and when I walked in, every candle was lit. Now, I think it's impossible for that to happen, and you certainly don't have a store closed with all the candles lit. But I went in, and as a result, I felt sort of obligated to purchase something. So I purchased this beautiful little purple candle. And when he was wrapping it up for me, he also gave me this little glass thing to put it on, dish, crystal actually. And I said, no, I just want the candle, And he insisted that I take it. And then he said to me, look, he said, Jay, you have a very big day coming tomorrow, and I know you're very scared, so I want you to take this and light it and say a prayer, and I promise you're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's done. It's magic that way. Go ahead,
Interestingly,
Chantel.
that candle, the purple candle, that is representative and associated with Archangel Raphael, who is the angel of healing. So it was very appropriate that you would receive that candle, and that it would be a purple one. And pretty much any color of purple, but especially the color amethyst, and then the royal purples, you're looking at the color of healing and Archangel Raphael. So very appropriate and befitting.
Do these archangels, can they handle more than one case at a time? I mean, there's only one of them and zillions of us.
Well, not really.
I mean, what if a million people? What if a million people called on him at the same time?
Excellent question, and I answer that in my books too. The angels are made of energy. The physical body we see is just a body they show to connect more with us. But their pure form is pure energy. And in my original book, my first book, Azrael Loves Chocolate, I said they look like a jellyfish, which was the best way I could describe them. But now I realize they actually look like neurons. And I just didn't have the wording at the time. And so these neurons are made of smaller particles. And these particles almost look like a dust. And so Archangel Michael, if he wants, with 7 billion of us on this planet, if all 7 billion of us need Archangel Michael, all he needs to do is shed 7 billion of those particles. Because the angels are massive sources of energy. They're bigger. If you could think of the sun, the archangel's energy is bigger than that as far as energy is concerned. So the angel can shed off particles and create, I don't like to use the word clone, but that's the word that people understand, and they create clones of themselves that are connected to a source, Michael, that is in heaven. So all he has to do is shed off 7 billion particles. And it's not that Sally gets Michael on Monday and then George gets Michael on Tuesday. Michael can be with all of us at the exact same time and not have to bat an eye. And take it one step further, we humans have the same capability, only on a much smaller scale. The angels can do it into the millions and billions, but we humans, we're babies, so we can only split off into 2 or 3. That being said, we can live multiple realities at the same time.
Let's go to our first-time caller, Patrick in Everett, Washington. Good morning, Patrick.
Hello, George. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Thank you.
I've been looking forward to talking to her. I listen to you all the time, George. You're a good guy, very smart and very intelligent.
Thank you, Patrick.
I actually, it sounds odd, but I subscribe to going towards the darker side of it. I accepted my fate as being towards, I won't say satanic, but towards the darker side of angels. There's always the opposite side, and I'm on the opposite side. And I had to call tonight because, in a way, I wasn't told, but I had to call. And it's kind of interesting, I find it. But
well, being on the opposite side, you mean you're on the side of evil, or
yeah,
you are? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I find it very interesting.
Do you like being on that side?
This is going to sound rather odd, but it's kind of my birthright. My mother cheated on my father with a priest. And
with a priest?
Yes.
Oh my God!
Wow.
And it never came out. Later on, he died of cancer. And then on top of that, I committed suicide, and then I came back from the blackness, and a whole bunch of other things. And I've seen the bottom. I've seen the wailing, the arms, the seas of people. I have shadow people that follow me around constantly. They're always they guard me. They watch me.
You know what you're saying?
What's that, Chantel?
Let me just to inject here. When I said that Lucifer, and there's just not, I really wish we had more time to go into this, and I know, and I'll be very, very brief. When I say that Lucifer didn't fall, he did not fall. But I did not say that there wasn't a place where souls that are tormented, that there is a place where they go. There is a place where tormented souls go. There's no the hell that we think of demons roasting humans on a spit with rosemary, garlic, and a dash of sherry. That doesn't exist. But there is a place where when you leave this world, because you are responsible, even though you could write a script to be the most heinous person this world has ever known. But you go back home and you take with you the guilt, the anger, the hate, that cannot abide in heaven. That cannot stand. So if you take that back with you, you're going to get dumped into Lucifer's mansion. And he takes care of broken souls, souls that can't let go of guilt, hate, that can't let go of their ego, that can't let go of whatever it is that's holding them back spiritually. So there is a dark place, but it's not a place where people are being tormented because they torment themselves. But the thing is, it's not an eternal hell. Once they heal and they realize that they are in the grace of God and that no one is beyond redemption and everyone can come back from that, then once they heal themselves of that, then they go home. So what you're seeing as shadow people, remember, as I said, heaven isn't up there. It's right here. We just can't see it because it's at a different vibration. So the people you're seeing as shadow people are likely people you're encountering that are in Lucifer's mansion.
I've got to ask Patrick, by the way. Patrick, this was your choice. Do you want to leave the dark side?
I actually enjoy it. I take I take personal enjoyment in causing pain to people, but subversively. I don't do it directly or physically, but I do it in a subversive way after I find out their weaknesses. And most people will tell you their weaknesses.
Do you feed off them when you do that? I mean, does it make you feel better?
Yes, it does, actually.
Huh.
And I find people's weaknesses and I exploit them, but I do it in such a way that they don't realize what I'm doing. Maybe this sounds perhaps odd, but it works very effectively.
Until it's too late. So how do you reach somebody like Patrick, if you can, Chantel, by trying to illuminate him to the good?
Well, first of all, my question is, in knowing, what are you gaining from this? Are you looking to gain anything spiritual? Now, there are all types of people in this world, and there are a lot of people who don't want anything to do with spirituality. And we have people who enjoy things that are dark and quote-unquote evil. But everything we do have a consequence, and all I can say is, are you prepared for the consequences of your actions, both in this illusion and when you go back home? Because right now, it may feel great doing what you're doing, but your higher self, when you go on the other side, may feel burdened with the guilt of the things that you've done, and you won't be able to move on until you've been able to let that go. And the only reason I can say that is because I've had personal experience with that with my father. So I always tell people, think twice, because everything has a consequence.
Yes,
it will follow you.
It's almost like karma, isn't it?
Exactly. We all have karma that eventually we have to pay for. We're answerable to it when we leave here. And you have to be prepared for it and know that anything that you do to someone, it is going to come back at you one way or another and multiple times over. And I've seen it happen. And that's not a scare story or a bedtime story. That's something that I've seen in the last 20 years.
And it always comes back to haunt.
Always.
I've always
even after you've repented, it still is going to come find its way back to you.
I've always been told that if you send out evil, it comes back tenfold.
Yes, absolutely.
Chantel, in the minute we have left, let's let people know where they can pick up your works.
Oh, absolutely.
Stuff like that. Go ahead.
My books can be picked up at just about any major book retailer, Amazon. I am with my publisher is Llewellyn Worldwide, so you could definitely get it from their website. And my website is ChantelLysette.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, and my website has all of that information. Before we go, if it's okay, George, I would just love to say a very happy birthday to someone dear to me, to kind of christen this beautiful moment tonight. I had a lot of fun, and that is to actually two people who have a birthday coming up, and that is to several of my sons.
Good for you.
And they're not my blood sons, but I'm kind of the honorary mother. And that is Shin Soo-yeon and Eli Kim of the international Korean K-pop group UKISS. Boys, have beautiful birthdays. The rest of the boys of the group, be good, stay healthy, and have a great 2014. Mama
Super,
UKISS
Chantel. I hope they all do. Thank you so much for Dan Galante, Tom, Dan Heiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Laudesour, Timothy Banal, Stephanie Smith, Chris Boros, George Nappenart Bell. I'm George Norrie. Somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.